Good afternoon, everyone. YouTube and the world. Welcome to episode 16 of DECHEN'S Daily Dharma. Today's episode is about the Sanskrit word Graha. Graha. Now, in order to teach you this Sanskrit word Graha, I have to give credit to the teacher who taught me the word Graha. I learned the word Graha at the Munich tribe gathering of Jivamukti Munich, organized by Gabriela Bozic in 2009, 8.5 years ago. And at that tribe gathering, I taught some workshops, and I took many classes. I participated in a group class that was taught by 14 Jivamukti teachers, each one teaching one of the 14 points of the Jivamukti open class. And then the pinnacle of the weekend was the yoga class by Sharon Gannon, in which she taught the word Graha, and she taught about Saturnine Graha, which is a topic I will get to in another video. I will elaborate on. And just from getting this one Sanskrit word, Graha, and Sharon Gannon, who you see here along with David Live, in this photograph on the altar of Jivamukti Barcelona, is an expert at weaving a Jivamukti open class around a single Sanskrit word. So Graha means connection, it means gravity. Graha means to be connected to connect to be connected to be under the influence of. In some ways, to be bound to, what we are bound to, right? What we do not choose in life, because we are bound to certain things. Okay. So Graha is a fantastic word, and it is, of course, familiar to modern practitioners of Western capitalized yoga teacher trainings as the root of Aparigraha. Aparigraha. Aparigraha means to not be in the grip of. To not be in the grip of. To not be in the grip of. This Aparigraha is commonly taught as greedlessness, although it should be question mark to those who see that asteya, the second of the 5 yamas of Patanjali, to be redundant, because asteya means to not steal. So to not steal pretty much covers the emotion of greed. Aparigraha in the Buddhist 5 precepts is more focused on addictions, on not being addicted to things, not taking any drugs or particularly alcohol, but even caffeine or cigarettes or processed sugar. Any form of addiction, addictions to nowadays internet, Wi-Fi, social media, giving bursts of dopamine, right, would not be aparigraha. There is some aparigraha that interprets the meaning of aparigraha as don't believe in astrology, right? Don't blame Mercury in retrograde for your inability to communicate or other people's inability to communicate to you. Don't blame the stars. Don't believe in fortune tellers or people who attempt to manipulate you through knowledge of astrology. Another potential meaning of aparigraha. I take a more severe interpretation of aparigraha. Aparigraha means no inheritance. Aparigraha means really not to be bound even by relationships, right? No family, no political influence, no attempt to interfere with actions, no attempt to have a graha, to have power, right? To have influence over things, to be aparigraha, to be without influence over the events of life. And that's a more severe interpretation of aparigraha. A milder interpretation of aparigraha might be to levitate, right? To use the force of gravity falling completely into the earth. And of course, to oppose gravity, to be apari, to be opposite of gravity, is to be alive, right? Since gravity is always pushing us down, pushing us into the center of the earth, trying to compress the physical matter of our body into the more dense matter of the earth. So there are multiple interpretations of aparigraha, and of course understanding the term graha may help influence your understanding of the term aparigraha. In terms of practical interpretation of aparigraha, it means, remove as much of your clothing as possible before yoga. Don't do yoga class with a backpack full of gold, right? You cannot carry around your backpack full of gold and do your sun salutes at the same time. You must put your bag of gold to the side and risk it being stolen while you do your sun salutes. You cannot be worrying about your bag of gold while you're doing sun salutes and vinyasa and asana and pranayama, or you will not concentrate well in those things, and thus aparigraha is really no property, right? No property, no attachment to things. It's a very idealistic of the yamas, and very difficult to practice outside of a monastic vow, right? A monastic vow to own no property. Even the monks have robes, and they have a mala bead, and they have a bowl with which they go and they beg for food every afternoon. So very difficult for a Western yoga teacher training to properly represent aparigraha, okay? Because Western yoga teacher trainings are based on economy. People buy them. They buy their way into these yoga trainings, and there wouldn't be yoga teacher trainings if there were not people making money off of them. So aparigraha, it's very, very difficult of the grahas. Now graha, of course, there's other great words that come from graha. Once I studied graha and I learned the story of Hanuman and Saturn, I got to the Navagraha, the 9. Nava means 9. Graha means planets. The 9 planets and the stories of the 9 planets, such as the Sun, Surya, Mercury, the Buddha, Venus, the Shukra, Mars, the Virabhadra, right? The wrathful warrior form of Shiva, Jupiter, the Gurave, or Brihaspati, Jupiter, Graha, which we chanted today, Gurave Namaha, the god of teachers, or of course Shanidev, my favorite, the Saturn Graha. So the Navagraha, the stories of the 9 planets, which are not unique to Indian folklore, but also belong to the Greeks, the Egyptians, the South Americans, all the cultures that were sophisticated enough to understand astrology, astronomy, and astrophysics, have their theology and polytheism based on the Navagraha, the 9 planets, the relatives of Earth, the Navagraha. Lastly, one of the most important and significant uses of the word graha in recent 20th century politics, right, would be the Satyagraha. The Satyagraha, the revolution of India, the liberation of the Indian continent from the white Europeans, in particular the government of Great Britain, right? The Satyagraha, to be in the Graha of Satya, to be in the grip of the truth, to be under the force of the truth, that the bonds of the slave to the master are also the bonds of the master to the slave, and in fact, the slave has more power over the master than the master has power over the slave, especially the more slaves a master attempts to keep. The more slaves a master attempts to keep, the more power the slaves have against the master when they rise up, when they unite, when they see that they have more in common with each other in their struggle against a cruel and greedy master than when they are divided by false divisions that the master likes to use to keep the slaves divided and thus conquered, to keep the slaves enslaving themselves as much as possible, because masters don't even like to go through the effort of enslaving others. They like the slaves to enslave each other, have different groups of slaves, and give little favors to some slaves and little favors to other slaves, and get those slaves to compare their little favors that they got from the master, instead of realizing that all their fruits of their effort are going to the master. And so Satyagraha, the revolution of Gandhi, the so-called non-violent revolution of Gandhi, although there was a lot of decisive action, a lot of willingness to receive violence, willingness to provoke violence, although not willingness to cause violence. So very interesting, very controversial. It must be noted that the Gandhian revolution of India took place in a narrow window of free press. There was an underestimation by the aristocratic British and the corporate British of the power of the free press. And since Gandhi's time, education and literacy has been struggling. There is an effort in the United States to make people less intelligent, to cut the education budgets, to mesmerize people with television, films, and social media, so-called fake news, to distract people from the causes of suffering in the world, make people feel sorry for the master and the master's children rather than the slaves. So there's a lot of work to do yet in Satyagraha. Okay, we're still in the Satyagraha, where Satyagraha is not over just because Great Britain left India and divided it into Pakistan and East Pakistan and India. Okay, so Gandhi's revolution is a work in progress. But it brings us back to Graha. Graha yoga, the yoga of connection, the yoga of dealing with what we are bound to. It is not some radical idealist yoga where we can run off and talk about permanent bliss and enlightenment while we leave behind our friends. Enlightenment is a plague upon true seekers of spirituality, because it promises permanent happiness without really realistic connection to what is in this life, connection to your birth parents, connection to your birth religion, connection to your government, connection to your economy, connection to the planet, right? Graha means planet. It is the yoga of the planet, the yoga of the earth. This is Graha yoga, as I have adapted it from the initial transmission of the word Graha from Padmaji Sharon Gannon at the Jivamukti Tribe Gathering 2009. So that is a short teaching on Graha, Aparigraha, Navagraha, and Satyagraha here at the Jivamukti Yoga Barcelona, where I've been very happy to be teaching for a few weeks and visiting my relatives and seeing the beautiful transition from winter to spring, the Easter holiday, and been having a nice time here in Barcelona, as I move on to Mallorca and Berlin and head back to New York City in 2 weeks. And I will close this episode of Dechen's Daily Dharma. If you enjoyed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave some comments behind, ask some questions. I hope some challenging questions. I don't wish to be praised too much. I like to be challenged. Graha Yoga is a yoga of confrontation. Peace is achieved through confrontation as early as possible while the problems are still at a superficial level. It is not a yoga of avoidance, a yoga of misdirection and manipulation. It is a yoga of revelation, a yoga of honesty, a yoga of truthfulness. Okay, in some ways, perhaps not the most socially adaptable yoga. Although being aware of one's social bonds is very, very important. We cannot have pseudo-renunciate teachings being dished out by non-renunciates anymore. It is no longer tolerable. It is no longer acceptable. It is no longer feasible. Although it may be economically viable for some to continue peddling pseudo-renunciate teachings when they themselves are not renunciate. It's disrespectful to the real renunciates who are out there. I don't claim to be renunciate. I am a householder. I am a bachelor. I am a merchant. I am an entrepreneur. I am an artist. I am not renunciate. I don't shave my head, pretend to be renunciate. I don't wear robes, pretend to be renunciate. I don't read texts that are meant for renunciates. And I do not teach enlightenment, which is exclusive privilege of those who have paid in advance to contemplate enlightenment through renunciate vow. Okay, but we will continue to develop Graha Yoga, yoga of connection. We will research neurochemistry, modern science, reason, dialogue, difficult communications, difficult conversations. We will continue to refine what is Graha Yoga. With respect to the previous yogas and the previous generations who did their best with what they had to work with and with the fabric of who they were in that time frame to bring yoga forward a step. Graha Yoga is the next step. Om Gram, Grim, Grom, Sat, Gurave Namaha. I am in the 3 bija mantras that tie me to my teachers, those who have taught me. I will always be bound to what they have taught me. I will always be bound to follow and to evolve and to remain connected to those teachings and to those teachers in whatever form of connection is available to me. Oh. I take refuge in my higher self, who always knows what's best for me. I take refuge in my higher self, who always knows what's best for me. I take refuge in my higher self, who always knows what's best for me. Thank you for watching Dechen's Daily Dharma, Episode 16, Jiva Mukti Yoga, Barcelona.